Hey, what's going on with that nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And as you can see, I have a special guest with me here on the State of the Saints podcast from New Orleans Football, the go-to guy, the official plug of the New Orleans Saints, Mr. Nick Underhill. Nick, what's going on?
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, man, I definitely got to call you the sports plug, man. You co-signed by Alvin Kamara, man. So you're
I'm gonna have to cut
officially.
him. I got to cut him a check for that. I think. I don't know,
But thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. And Nick, I mean, this was a disappointing year, man. You look at the New Orleans Saints going 12-4. Get a divisional round game inside of the Superdome, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the third time. They forced four turnovers in the game, cost them the game, and now you look at the New Orleans Saints. A lot of things are changing. I mean, you got some coaches that are leaving, going to other opportunities, and you're going to have some players that might have to leave as well. But I think no bigger story is Drew Brees. Nick, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you the question. Do you see this as Drew Brees' last year? Have we seen Drew Brees for the last time in the Saints uniform?
I would be pretty surprised if he plays next year. It just feels like everything's pointing toward him leaving, this being the last year. He signed the contract with NBC. The team has kind of even openly talked about their expectation of it being the last year. Peyton's alluded to it more than once, and he hasn't done that in the past. So I think coming into this year, there was that understanding it was going to be the last season. I mean, you never know. Like, he could have a change of heart, wake up today and be like, you know what, I want to do it one more time. But it's hard to see that happen. It felt like this was kind of the farewell tour, and it kind of felt like, it's hard to talk about him because you don't want to say anything disrespectful because of everything he's done and what he's meant to the team and to the city and all that stuff. And he had a multitude of injuries this year, but it just kind of feels like it's the time, And I don't know, last year, the Minnesota game was a little bit rough in the playoffs, but I don't think at the end of last year it was like, all right, like he's probably done everything he can. It feels like at this point, it just kind of feels like a good natural spot for that to kind of be where it kind of comes to an end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hear that his wife, she spoke very candidly about Drew Brees, of course, this season and everything that he went through. I mean, a lot of things that we didn't know. And Nick, I want to ask you that too. Did you all have any inkling that he was dealing with some of those other things? I mean, I went back and I looked at one of the interviews that he did with you all, and I think somebody asked him about the tape that he wore on his shoulder, and his reply to them was, "I got a lot going on." But did y'all know any of that other stuff, the cuff, and also the those other injuries he was dealing with?
So I definitely didn't know the shoulder was that bad. They listed the shoulder, and there was some talk about the shoulder. And during the game, you would see him kind of like doing this stuff to it and like working it. So you kind of knew there was something going on there. Right. The foot, there were some whispers about something happening around week 5-ish. Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, but there was no indication it was that bad. Everything was, he's good, he'll get through it. He's a little bit older, it takes a little longer to heal, stuff like that. Like it didn't seem like he was, nobody was letting that on. And I understand that, like, his wife should have put that out there. She should have put it out there sooner when people were talking about him, because it kind of puts it all in the context, and it's a little bit easier to understand like why when he comes back from the rib and lung injury, like there's 2 games where he's able to throw the ball down the field and then he can't. And it just seems like the wear and tear probably added up on the shoulder, and then it just kept going. And you get to the playoff game, and now instead of hitting Emmanuel Sanders 50 yards down the field against cover 2 like he did in the first game back, like now he's struggling to throw the ball down the field at all. And it just added up. So I'm glad she put that out there, because it makes it a little bit easier. Like, he didn't necessarily just fall off a cliff, but he got hurt and then reached that point. But no, I mean, like, as far as this stuff being that bad, I had no idea it was as progressed as it was. Like, you knew there was some stuff, but year foot injury, it's just like, oh, like he's got a foot bruise or something. Like, I didn't know he had like plantar fasciitis and all this stuff.
Wow. I mean, that's incredible. And the fact that she was the one that brought it up, he never complained about it at all. And I'm pretty sure if she didn't put it out there, then we would have never known. I mean, I think
probably not.
That's the type of pride that he has. But Nick, I gotta play a little bit of devil's advocate here, and I gotta think about something. If Sean Payton knew that Drew Brees was dealing with all of these different issues, all these different problems, why didn't he try to shut Drew Brees down maybe to later on in the season? Why was it that Drew Brees in a lot of people's mind was rushed back for that Kansas City game, especially when I'm pretty sure Sean Payton knew all these things were going on, and you also have two other quarterbacks that were more than capable of winning a few games for them. So why do you think Sean Payton decided to go with Drew after all these injuries?
I think it probably got to a point where he wasn't going to get worse. Like they didn't think he was probably going to get more injured. They probably, you get to a point. It's just like, can you deal with the pain and then you perform? And look, I mean, Drew at 70%. Again, this last game I think was worse than anybody expected. It was worse than any of the other games. Like there was legitimate reasons I think for optimism in some of those earlier games when you start saying, "Oh, Drew's hitting these throws down the field now. He wasn't hitting them before, and now,
Right.
oh, what happens if you put Mike Thomas in there? What's it look like then?" And I think that all of us like we're looking at it through this ideal lens of like, okay, he's doing this now. All the pieces come in, and what's it going to be? It's going to be the defense is playing so good, the offense will get to a point, and it'll be better going forward. Are you going to tell Brees when he wants to come back and he's telling you he's fine that like you're not playing him for Taysom Hill? Like I think that's a tough thing to do. And if you believe that he can help you still win games, even if he's a little bit lesser, like lesser Drew, I think is still better than Taysom. But this last game, the thing that bothers me about it is because like a lot of people are gonna remember it like that. It's gonna be like, oh well, week one he struggled, the last game he struggled, so he was garbage the whole year. And like I don't think that was really the case. Like I think week one, yeah, it was bad. They figured it out. They got in sync, and then by the end of the season, it looked like week one. But there were moments in between where like it got better, worse. It was never all the way there. It was never the Saints offense. But I think that there still was legitimate reason for optimism heading into the playoffs that they were going to figure it out on offense and get better. But your quarterback's banged up. Your best receiver has multiple injuries that need surgery. Just a lot was going on, and it just never came together.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just a little confused because, I mean, here you have Jameis Winston on the sidelines, and we seen that play that the Saints did in the playoff. I mean, a play that they mimicked from the Chicago Bears the week before. I mean, he threw the ball down the field, and I'm pretty sure like people have their opinions about Jameis, but I'm pretty sure he could have, did a little something, in my opinion, a little bit more than what Drew can do. And I mean, and I guess I'm looking at it as being objective and as a Saints fan. I mean, that was it just left a bad taste in your mouth, and you know that he was dealing with all these things. Now it just makes you wonder, like, why? Like sometimes, I mean, and sometimes I feel like you have to protect the players from themselves. I mean, of course, if a player's going to say I can play, but I think it's up to the coaches sometimes to look at those players. I mean, and the fact that he's been with Drew Brees and talking Sean Payton for like 15 years, I would think that, he would know if Drew was right and if he wasn't. I mean, so I guess I'm just a little bit confused. I feel like that could have been handled a little bit better because, like you said, people are going to look at week one and people are going to look at the division round and they're going to look at Drew and be like, oh, well, he wasn't all that. And I feel like that's a shame. But let me go ahead, Nick.
No, I mean, I do think that they thought the shoulder got better, and that was the thing that I kept hearing is that like, oh, it wasn't just the ribs and the lung, like the shoulder got better too. So I think they thought he had gotten better there. And again, like the game before, like it didn't look like Drew was finished or anything like that. Like the game before, like he was solid. He got into this game, and I think it just he had a lot of stuff going on, but B, like I think Todd Bowles probably just had a really good plan too, which played a part in it. And if you're Todd Bowles after that 38-3 beatdown, like he was probably thinking about that game for 10 weeks, like about how I'm going to come back, how I'm going to shut him down. And I think he did a good job with that. And then Mike's injured. He's not himself. There's a lot going on. I don't think it was all just Brees. It's just, it would be tough. Like coming off the first playoff game to be like, no, I'm not playing Drew Brees. I'm going with Jameis Winston here, Taysom Hill here. Like, I just don't think there was enough there, but you're right. Like you get into that game and it was frustrating to watch because the Saints were clearly the better team everywhere except quarterback. They were the better team. I felt like they outplayed them everywhere. You get to the 20 with Deontay, you don't score. you knew right away it was trouble with the way they were moving the ball on offense. The 2 early field goals felt like the Rams game, the Rams playoff game where they're like squandering opportunities. And yeah, you're right. Like it was frustrating because you just knew the whole game like they were not moving the ball on offense. But I don't know if there was enough there before that game to be like I'm going. Well, you didn't even have Taysom, so it's like I'm going with Jameis.
Right.
Like I don't know if there was enough there to make that move.
All right. Well, let me run something by you before we move on. Do you think that Sean Payton didn't really utilize Jameis Winston this season because of what took place last year with Teddy Bridgewater? Like, I feel like the Saints wanted Teddy Bridgewater to be Drew Brees' successor. And I think that they probably thought that Drew Brees, being the Iron Man that he was just going to play out that season, wouldn't have got hurt, and you have Teddy that's just on the sidelines, ready to take over once Drew retired. And we know about the 5 games he went 5-0, right? And that he played his way out of New Orleans to Carolina. So, do you think if Jameis Winston would have played a couple games this season, would have been successful? Do you think that was on the mind of Sean Payton, knowing that, well, if Jameis, we like him a lot, but if I play him and he looks really good, he might end up going somewhere else and we can no longer afford him. Do you think that was on the mind of Sean Payton possibly?
I don't know. I do think that he would have done really good. Like he's a talented quarterback with talented coaches, and I think him, any quarterback, like they made Taysom look pretty good in some games, and I think we all know Jameis has more natural skills than Taysom as a passer, and they use Taysom as a pocket passer. We know Jameis. So, on one hand, there's a flip side to this too. Like if he wasn't 100%, weird offseason, signs late, so he doesn't have all that. Like it's post draft, no practices, training camp. We watched training camp. There were highs and lows. The highs were really high. He made some of the best throws that like I've ever seen in a training camp. Like legitimately, like he was doing stuff that was like awe-inspiring in training camp. But there were also like a handful of interceptions. So if he wasn't 100% ready, like I feel like, look, it's probably not fair, but Jameis is probably evaluated differently than a Taysom. It's just the way it is. Like he's just going to be looked at differently. And if Jameis goes out there and makes mistakes, that's his audition for the league. And if he messes that up, like what happens? So if you're Jameis and you aren't 100% there, like not playing before you are 2,000% comfortable with the offense, I think isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world for the Saints either. If he's developing behind the scenes and they're optimistic about him, and I hear they are, and I think they want him back. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not the worst thing in the world if people don't know how much he's improved and you want to bring him back next year to be your starter. It's not the worst thing in the world. But I do think that like they probably, if it was very clear that Jameis was totally ready and much better than Taysom, I don't think like Sean would sandbag this season for a maybe next year. I think they would have went with the obviously better player. But like if it's neck and neck, or Jameis is looking a little bit better than Taysom, but Taysom knows everything and he's more comfortable. You can minimize the mistakes. I think it makes sense to go that direction. But look, I mean, long term, I think if they fix Jameis's turnover issues and it's fumbles with the interceptions, that stuff goes away. Like he has top 5, top 7 arm talent. Like there's no question. So I would love to see him get to that point and come back. Let me shut off this fan, man. I'm sorry. I forgot to shut this off. I don't know if you can hear.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, but I mean, I really feel like Jameis Winston has a lot of talent. I really do. I feel like Who Dat Nation that if Jameis can cut down on the turnovers, I think that he'll be just fine. I mean, and we know that Drew Brees. I mean, you look at Drew Brees' stats, leaving San Diego, going back to and going to New Orleans. It was almost identical as far as the completion percentage, the touchdown to turnover ratio, like all of that was kind of identical to Jameis. But Nick, so for the record, do you feel that the New Orleans Saints are going to bring Jameis Winston back, correct?
I don't know if I feel it. I think they'd like to, and I think they should. And I don't know how much his price goes up. It should go up. Like, man, them being able to sign him for $1 million was ridiculous. It was the second dumbest thing that happened this offseason next to like Cam Newton having no options at all. Just it's weird how the league works, man.
crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I think that they should be able to bring him back. It might be a little bit more, but I think they have the best information. And if somebody throws 7 million at him, they know and they can match it and they can go incentive laden, and let them earn the money or whatever, 1 year deal maybe. I think it would make sense for Jameis probably to sign a shorter term deal so that he can prove it. And I don't think he should be locked in at some discount rate. Like I think with a good coach, stability. He never had stability in Tampa Bay. I mean, there was never.
Good point.
He never had it. He never had it like a mentor there. Like every court, like he played with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but Ryan Fitzpatrick was like trying to cut his throat. He wanted the job. Like he comes here, like he finally has like people he can learn from, stability, a good system, people secure in what they're doing. So I'm extremely like I hope he's back because just I want to evaluate it. I want to see what he can do. I think that he can figure it out and be a good player. But we're gonna see what they do.
Yeah, and not only that, Nick. I mean, you make some interesting points about Tampa, but you also have to look at the fact that he had the whole franchise on his back. I mean, when you're the first overall pick, your pick to be the culture change, right? So you go into the Tampa facility and everybody in the organization and everybody that cheers for the Bucks expect for you to be the guy that changes their luck. So really they don't have the patience, for you to try to figure it out. They want results right then and there. And when you combine the fact that they really didn't have a running game, they had Doug Martin, but he was in and out of the lineup. And they really didn't put a supporting cast around him. But if you look at the New Orleans Saints, he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to have to put the entire franchise on his back. You can put pieces around him. So I think that pressure being let off of him might help him to develop with the, combined with the fact that people will be a little bit more patient with him in New Orleans. But speaking of another Saints player, Michael Thomas. We talked about him a little bit, during this interview. But there's a lot of talk about Mike Thomas. Of course, we know that he's getting ankle surgery. He decided to kind of forego having surgery in the middle of the season because he wanted to play with Drew because he figured this was Drew last season. But Nick, they got a lot of stories going around here, talking about Michael Thomas not being happy. Michael Thomas wanted out of New Orleans. Michael Thomas not really happy the way the organization is going and how he's being treated. How true is any of this true? Like, is he happy? Is he not happy? Like, is he frustrated? What's going on with Michael Thomas?
Man, I wish I could tell you. I know. I don't think anybody knows what Mike Thomas is thinking ever. Like I don't think he's talking to people like that. He's not calling up reporters and telling them that he's mad or anything. So you're left trying to read the tweets and you don't know if he's like tweeting this lyric because it means something or tweeting this lyric just because he's listening to the song and he likes it. So we're all trying to read tea leaves. I don't know. But it's like. You just said that he came back to play with Drew and help Drew get there. So, like, if he's that dismayed with the organization, like, why are you even doing that? I know before the Philadelphia game that week, at the end of the week, he kind of told the team, like, hey, like, I got to shut it down and get healthier for the playoffs. Like, I'm going to give you all I got today against Philly. And, like, that's it. I'm taking the next 3 weeks off. I'm going to be ready for the playoffs. So, like, he was still trying to help him get to where he wanted to go. He was fighting through, injuries, playing through a lot of stuff. So I think all those things are good signs if we're trying to put it together. The fight with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think that, at this point, Mike's maybe vindicated a little bit after you see everything that happened this year. Like throwing a punch at him might not be the most outrageous thing in the world, but look, I don't know. Like he could be, some of the stuff that came out after that. Like if he were mad about it, I get it. I think Mike takes everything extremely personally, and I think that's what makes him great. But hopefully he finds a way to process this offseason and not let it become something that forces him out of here, because I think he is very important to the future. If it's Jameis, that helps. If it's any quarterback, it helps. But especially someone like that, like you said, like so he doesn't feel like he has to carry everything on his back. I think they have the pieces there for the next quarterback to succeed and not necessarily feel like they have to throw the team to victory every single week. And he's a significant part of that puzzle.
Right. Yeah. Is he okay? Do you see the Saints trading him? I kind of know why they wouldn't want to trade him, but just for the people at home, can you explain to them like what the Saints would have to would be giving up if they were to trade Michael Thomas?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you trade him, man, you're giving up like a ton of talent. Obviously,
Yeah.
the structure on the team. You just signed him to a massive contract. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you trade him, like you're paying money, dead money. You know, the money counts on the cap. So the signing bonus, whatever it is, it prorates. The money left on that is staying on the books. So you're paying, tens of millions of dollars for him to play football for somebody else for what? Like, so I think that he would have to make it very, very clear that like he's either A, not going to show up to play, or B, extremely disruptive. And I don't know if that's in his DNA all the way. Like not playing doesn't seem like, I can't picture Michael Thomas not playing football. It's just, I don't know. It'd be crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think the situation is that bad. I don't know. Like he would just have to become extremely disruptive for them to like want to pay him to play somewhere else. And I don't know if it's at that point.
Yeah, yeah, Nick. The only reason I'm saying this, I mean, I know that the New Orleans Saints don't want to get rid of Michael Thomas. I mean, but the crazy thing about it is on the State of the Saints podcast Facebook page and on Twitter, people have been sending me comments like, trade Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas needs to go. He's a diva, this, that, and the third. So I just wanted you to explain to them why that would be absolutely ridiculous. And then on top of that, like the guy was hurt, like
Right.
And we have been through this before. Like you look at Alvin Kamara last season. Alvin Kamara, everybody like, what's wrong with Alvin? What's wrong with Alvin? Alvin Kamara comes out and says I was playing the entire season mostly at 71%. And once he said that, me as a fan, I was like, okay, I understand. This season, I mean, he's arguably, he arguably probably going to be offensive player of the year. So it's like, I don't know. It's like the mindset of that sometimes like they may see production one year and don't see it the next year. They're wondering what's going on, and it seems like that's just the logical way to get rid of some, to handle the issue, to get rid of a person. But I really like Michael Thomas, and like I said, I mean, like you said, he's a competitor. I mean, everybody talks about. I mean, from his old coach Urban Meyer talks about how competitive he is. He never coach anybody as competitive as Michael Thomas. So why wouldn't you want a guy like that on your football team? I mean, this guy is exactly what you need in your organization. I mean, when a guy's wired like that, I mean, it just tells me that he wants to be great. So I don't see why anybody would even have the word trade and Michael Thomas in the same sentence. But we move on.
It'd be 20 million. 20 million on the cap if they trade.
20 million?
20 million. Yeah.
Wow. Ooh, man.
And he ain't on your team, like.
Well, he's not going anywhere. Just 20 million. Nah. They already got some cap issues, and that's my next question to you. The Saints being close to $100 million over the cap. Of course, we know that the cap most likely going to go down due to COVID-19 this season, and the New Orleans Saints have some decisions to make. And some of the players that we probably have seen and known and loved throughout the years might have to end up leaving. What player do you think would be, I guess, the top priority for the New Orleans Saints to resign? And what player do you feel like is going to be a cap casualty that may shock the Who Dat Nation?
The shocking one, I'm not sure. Like they can do a lot of stuff to get under the cap without cutting a lot of name players. Like, Nick Easton's probably got to go. Malcolm Brown might be one that hurts that you got to let go just for money reasons. But like they can do a lot of stuff to get to where they need to be, but they aren't gonna have a lot of money to shop for new players. One of probably Trey Hendrickson or Marcus Williams is probably likely not going to be able to be brought back. If you're just looking at it pragmatically, like they could get really aggressive and find a way, but you start doing aggressive stuff and now you're tied to, guys you don't want to be tied to for too long into the future. Like if you start pushing money forward, it becomes harder to get rid of, instead of Cam Jordan aging up and, at a point where he's no longer productive, like you're committed to him for, $20 million or something like that, and you can't get rid of him. So those are the positions you put yourself in. So that's what they need to evaluate as they kind of reboot into this new era, is how much do they want to keep it together and at what cost? And that's going to be interesting. So they can either choose to make a lot of moves and just kind of reset now and be good in a year or two, or keep pushing with this core. And look, when you're already committed to Mike, Alvin, and some other guys, I think there's probably still going to be like a reasonable level of trying to be competitive and keep a good team together because they already got a lot of money in the guys. And I think, putting another quarterback in place of Brees, like they just won 12 games with like injured Brees and Taysom Hill. Like I don't think it's that far of a stretch for them to go out and sign a veteran that gets cut, or if Jameis fixes himself, I don't think it's that hard for them to win 10 games with the players they have around quarterback. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some stuff that happens, and it's going to be tighter for sure. I mean, they build the team like with the idea that the cap's going to go up 15% every year, and now it's dropping down to 180 million, and they got to clear $95 million worth of contracts. So it's a lot, but it's not that hard. It's really not that hard to do because they build this stuff in to like push stuff down the line. Like that's their whole cap management strategy, is to push money into the future. So there's a lot of things there, but it's tighter than it's absolutely tighter than it usually would be.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, I've seen this movie before. It's not a year that goes by, or maybe a couple of years that goes by. The Saints' salary cap is always in the news. You're always seeing it in mainstream sports, how they're going to fix this team, this, that, and the third. And Mickey Loomis, and along with the financial department, they do an outstanding job, moving and shaking things around in order to keep core players. So, but for me, I just think a top priority has got to be the Ryan Ramcheks and the Marshawn Lattimores. I feel like those are the two top priority guys that you need to re-sign for this team. Trey Hendrickson, I'm kind of on the fence, Nick. I understand that he had a big season, but it's almost equivalent to me like Von Bell, right? Von Bell, like before his contract year, was forcing fumbles and catching interceptions. I mean, he had like one of his best seasons. But, if it came down to Trey Hendrickson and Marcus Williams, I think I would have to go with Marcus Williams because
100%.
Marcus Williams has been more consistent than Trey Hendrickson. But I think maybe an exception of last year where that was kind of a down year for him. But more often than not, Marcus Williams has been pretty steady at the safety position. That's something the Saints been lacking for a long time. So I would definitely try to make him a top priority. And like I said, I understand pass rush is important, but I have to see more Trey Hendrickson. I mean, you combine that with only 1 year and also being in and out of the lineup. So, I mean, that would be my top priority. I would pick Marcus Williams over Trey Hendrickson. But Nick, thank you so much for being a part of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for your time, and let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Nick_Underhill, and my website is neworleans.football. We got an article on there breaking down move by move how they can get under that cap, so check it out.
Yeah, y'all check it out, neworleans.football. Make sure y'all subscribe. And I mean, like I said, Nick is the go-to guy, man. We're going to start calling him the source, Nick Underhill, because hey, like I said, I got to, Nick. I mean, look, this man been co-signed by Alvin Kamara, man. So thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. And thank you all for checking out the State of the Saints podcast. Make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel. YouTube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. Also, check me out on Twitter at State of Saints, and previous episodes available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Thank you so much, Nick. I really do appreciate the time, man.
I appreciate it, man.